Hi, I'm Todd Martin with the Walking Code. There's lots of reasons why people might develop problems with the way they walk. Sometimes it's recovering from an injury or even a medical problem like a stroke. But in other situations, it might just be a development of a bad habit. Now, when it's a bad habit, sometimes that can be really hard to tackle because usually people won't recognize it unless somebody points it out, which is probably not that common, or you start developing some pain from that bad habit. And sometimes people recognize that there's a problem that is stemming from the way they walk in that situation. So that's when you want to come to these videos and work on the technique so you can move more fluidly, and that is going to reduce the impact on your joints and help you walk more confidently and more comfortably. The first thing I want to look at is posture. If you don't have good posture, your walk is not going to be correct. Posture and walking are intricately linked. Good posture leads to good walking. Good walking leads to good posture. Bad posture leads to bad walking, and bad walking leads to bad posture. You can't separate the two of them. So for good posture, what we want to start with is the head elevated, eyes gazing straight forwards, not looking at the ground. If you find that you're standing or walking and you're looking at the ground in front of you rather than at the horizon, you've probably got a posture issue. So head elevated, like you have a string pulling up from the top of your head, floated up by a balloon. That's an old Tai Chi technique or a way to think about walking. The next thing you want to think about with your posture is your shoulders. Your shoulders should not be hunched forward, and they also shouldn't be pulled back like kind of a military posture. They should be back and down in a relaxed fashion, just sunk into the socket here. And you should notice that when your shoulders are in the right position, your palms are facing the side of your thighs and not the front of your thighs. And you should also not feel pull back in your shoulder blades. The shoulder blades should feel relaxed. So chest relaxed, shoulder blades relaxed, arms in the socket and down so the palms are facing the side, not hunched forward. Now we go down to our pelvis. For good posture, you want your pelvis to be in a level position. Level means it's not tilted back. This is called a posterior pelvic tilt, and not tilted forward. That's called an anterior pelvic tilt. Both of those misalign the spine and can lead to pain. If you're going to think about your pelvis like a bucket of water, you don't want it tipping water out the front or tipping water out the back. That is a level pelvis. Now I'm going to step back and show the feet. When you're standing with normal posture, you want to have your feet relatively facing straight forward. If you're just standing and you have a slight turnout in your feet, that's also not a problem. But if you're walking with a turnout in the feet, then you've got a challenge. So it's really good to make a habit of standing with your feet facing parallel to one another in a straight line. Once you've got your posture in place, the next thing I want you to look at is your arm swing. Arm swing is a reflection of what's going on in your core when you walk. Now I know when you walk, it seems like the core isn't doing anything, but really all of the motion from walking is generated in your core. And that means your upper spine rotation, your lumbar spine rotation, and your hip joints. When your core is moving properly, your arms are going to swing in a nice relaxed fashion in a forward direction. So they move forward and then they drop back passively. Forward and drop back passively. They should not be pulling back. So the primary motion is forward and relax, not backwards like this. You also want to make sure your arms are not swinging across the body. And you want to make sure that your arms are swinging with a significant amplitude. Significant amplitude means when you're walking, the arms should really be moving in a nice fluid fashion. If your arms seem like they're hanging and not really doing very much, that means you're probably not activating your core And you're probably also going to be taking really tiny steps like this if you don't see your arms swinging. The arms should really parallel what's going on in your legs, but on the opposite side. So when my left leg is going forward, my right arm is going forward, and when my right leg is going forward, my left arm is going forward. What I want you to do is practice, because getting a conscious feel of the arm swing when you walk can really help improve your walking technique. Most of us walk completely unconsciously. We don't even give it a second thought, and then we're going to be more vulnerable to problems. So begin by standing with your feet together, and I want you to practice taking a couple of steps. Begin with your left foot forward and see if your right arm naturally swings when you start walking. Some patients who I see and try to practice their walking, they have challenges trying to coordinate with their mind what their arms and what their legs are doing when I ask them to do it consciously. So that's why I want you to try to do this in a conscious manner and see what happens. Now we're going to take a step forward with the right leg, and I want to see if your left arm swings forward naturally. Just take a couple steps or 3 to 5 steps and then stop and then start over and try to become conscious of what's going on with the arm swing and how that coordinates with the legs. One of the essential principles of Tai Chi, which is a great exercise for learning how to move correctly, is that the upper body and the lower body must be coordinated. And that is all coordinated in the core, directed by the mind. And if we don't have the proper mental focus to coordinate, that's going to be a challenge. And then we also have to have the physical coordination going on, and coordinating your arm swing with your leg swing is one of the things that is going to help you get that coordination. Let's continue going down the body a little bit further. I'm going to step back because again we're going to look at the feet. I mentioned with posture, we want the feet facing straight forwards, or they could be out a little bit this way in a relaxed position. But when you start walking, the feet absolutely need to be facing straight forward. I find the thing that causes the most problem with people's foot position is wearing flip-flops. You can go outside any day of the week and walk behind people who are walking in flip-flops, and 90% of them will have their feet turned out like this. And that changes the nature of the walk. So instead of walking normally, they walk like this, and you will see that all the time. And that is because flip-flops will fly off your feet if you actually walk with a normal leg swing. So people subconsciously start turning their feet out, and that becomes a big challenge. So if you are having a problem with the way you walk, or you're just trying to assess the way you walk, make sure to look down at how your feet are aligned when you're doing it. Now, of course, you don't want to look down while you're walking, but you can take a few steps and then just kind of glance down and see whether your feet are facing straight forward or see if they're facing out at an angle, because that's something that would really need to be corrected if you're doing that. Once you have your foot alignment correct, and that also goes along with proper knee alignment. So when my feet are facing straight forward, my knees are facing straight forward, my hip joints are facing straight forward, and that alignment makes all of the bones and joints move how they're designed to move. That's going to reduce wear and tear and stress on those joints that can lead to pain over the course of time. Once we have the alignment down, we want to look at the impact. So that is how our feet are placing on the ground with each step. When we step, what we want to see is the leg swing naturally out in front of the body and pause right before you bring the heel to the ground. What you don't want to do is push into a crash where you land abruptly with high impact on the heel. What you want to do is have the foot swing naturally through, and I'm not taking a real step here, I'm just going to pause in midair, and then you want to turn with your core to bring your heel down in a controlled fashion, and then you're going to change weight and swing through. Then you're going to bring the next foot down, change weight, swing through. And we continue to alternate. Heel placement, roll down, swing through. That is really important, and one of the ways you can gauge that is by the sound of your foot strike. If you walk with a pitched forward posture, or for other reasons you're crashing into your heel, you're going to have a fairly loud impact on the ground, and you might notice that, or other people might notice that, but you can listen for it and judge how quietly you're walking. You should be able to walk on a hard surface and hardly hear your foot impacting the ground. Now on grass or dirt, that's really easy, but even on a hard surface, you should be able to walk with very little sound of the impact. It's a very light placement of the feet. My heel comes down in a controlled fashion. At no point in time am I controlled by gravity, making me fall forward into the step. If like gravity is pulling you forward into the step, it means you're probably not rotating your core properly. When we walk, the core needs to rotate, and I mean the upper part of the core, this part here that is causing the arms to swing, that is all done by rotation. If we stop rotating and actually turn both sides forward at the same time, that causes the body to pitch, and you can just practice that. Practice a lean. Leaning forward comes when you take the upper core on both sides and turn both forward at the same time. That's going to cause your body to lean. When you do that when you're walking, that's what causes your body to suddenly pitch forward and crash into the heel, and then you start over and then you pitch forward, and you keep repeating the cycle of pitching forward. And a lot of times it's a very subtle pitch that you don't even realize, but it causes the foot to jam into the ground, and that reverberates a lot of stress through the heel, through the knees, through the hips, and to the back. So one of the ways you can judge whether you're doing that or not is by listening to your foot strike and making sure that it's really quiet. And then also just be aware of the timing of the foot strike. You should feel like you have a pause and a lower, pause and lower, pause and lower, pause and lower. You should feel like the end of the step, and then you're starting the new step, versus the end of the step is there, and then now you're starting the next step. Now I'd like to talk in more detail about the core. The core is where it's all at when it comes to trying to fix your walking technique and walk with fluidity. We have three parts to our core. Our upper spine, the thoracic spine, and that rotates. My left side upper abdominal muscles rotate my left side of the core towards the right. My right side upper abdominal muscles rotate the right side of my core to the left. And you can follow that rotation by what your arms are doing, because your arms are attached to the thoracic part of your body, and your arms will reflect the rotation of the upper torso. Now we also have the second part of our core, which is going to be our lower torso, which is where our lumbar spine is, and this is going to be between our chest and our hips, or our pelvis. And this rotates in the opposite direction from the thoracic spine muscles. So my left side abdominal muscles rotate my pelvis to the left, and my right side abdominal muscles rotate my pelvis to the right. At the same time, they also tuck my pelvis under. So when I'm engaging the left side lower abs, what's happening is they are going to tuck my pelvis under and rotate my hips or my pelvis around. And that's what's going to generate the motion for your leg swing, because it's really a rotational motion from the pelvis. At the same time, you have a counter rotation from the upper torso that keeps your body moving in alignment, but they have to move at the same time in a coordinated fashion for your walk to be fluid. The final element of the core is your hip joints. Your hip joints can flex, or they can extend, or they can, what we call abduction or adduction. A lot of different ranges of motion for your hip joints, but in walking technique, primarily what we're talking about is hip flexion or hip extension. And when we're walking in a normal, slow, strolling pace, we're usually talking about hip flexion. When we walk, we're going to combine the three elements of the core in three separate phases of the step. So at the end of the swing through, if I'm going to start a new step, what I'm going to first do is engage the upper part of my core on the side of the swing leg to turn forward, and that's going to bring my heel down in a controlled fashion. The faster I rotate, the faster that heel is going to come down. Then what I'm going to do is engage my lower abs to tuck the pelvis, and that's going to pull the body forward and root my left leg to the ground and release the root from my right leg. Then thirdly, I'm going to engage the hip joint. And a lot of people think this is an extension of the hip joint or pushing off the ground. I'm not going to push off the ground with the hip joint. If I actually push at this moment in time, what's going to happen is I'm going to push myself backwards. What I'm actually doing is I'm lifting from my hip joint. This is actually a moment of hip flexion that's going to pull my body forward in that fashion to finish the step. And then now I'm going to change this core engagement on the left all to the right side, turning the upper torso on the right to lower the heel, engaging the right side of the lower torso to tuck the pelvis and shift the weight forward, and then engage a lifting action from my right hip to swing through. And remember, part of that swing through is a rotational aspect, because not only am I tucking the pelvis on the right with my lower abs, they're also turning my waist this way. And then I'm going to restart the walk again by upper torso, lower torso, lift off with the hips. So three parts of the core engaged in three segments of the walk. Facing forwards, when I'm swinging through with my left leg, I'm going to engage my upper torso, my lower torso, my hips. Upper torso, lower torso, hips. Turn, tuck, lift. Turn, tuck, lift. Your arm swing is following the motion of the core rotation. The arm swings are going to go forward and not side to side, because the upper torso is turning in the opposite direction from the lower torso. When I'm engaged on the left side, my upper torso is turning clockwise, my lower torso is turning counterclockwise, and it keeps my body facing straight forward, so you can't really appreciate visually that there's any motion happening in the core. But all of the movement is coming from the core, and the arm swing is how you can tell what's happening. Go back and try your walk in a very conscious manner. Begin with your posture, head up, eyes gazed forward at the horizon, shoulders back and down with the palms facing your outside of the thighs, not pulling back from your shoulder blades like this. Upper back should be relaxed. Pelvis engaged in a neutral position, so not tipping backwards and not tipping forwards. You can see with the forwards, I have this exaggerated lumbar curve. That puts a lot of stress on the lower back. Knees and feet lined up. And that's our proper posture. Then check out your arm swing. Are your arms swinging with the opposite leg? Are they swinging forward and dropping back in a nice relaxed motion versus throwing them back like that? Are they moving with significant amplitude? So are they really flowing, or are they just kind of hanging and associating that with a short waddling step that you might see as people get a lot older? You want to really engage the core, and that's what's going to get your leg swing and your arm swing going good. Then practice the conscious movement of your core, connecting your mind to what's happening here, and what's happening here is going to connect to your arms and to your legs, so they're moving in proper coordination with one another. When you do this, you're going to be able to walk with very minimal impact. You're going to be able to walk quietly. You're going to be able to walk with much more confidence and fluidity. And ultimately, the goal is to have reduced impact on your joints and prevention of pain or reduction in pain if you already have an injury in place. So thank you very much for watching this video. Walking is such an important thing for you and all of us to do correctly. So if you're having issues, practice, practice, practice. Don't think this is just something that is so easy that nobody needs to work on it. A lot of people need to work on the way they walk, and that's why a lot of people have problems with back pain, knee pain, plantar fasciitis, and a whole host of medical conditions that are caused not by an injury, but caused by dysfunctional ways or habits that we move. And that's what I'm trying to help you with. So I hope this was helpful. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, share this video with other people who you might be interested in it, and click on the bell to get notifications for my future videos. Thank you so much. Have a great day.